Hi everyone, my name is Pippa Stacey and I'm a communication consultant at the charity Astrid. A little while ago now we ran a session called Finding Graduate Jobs with a Chronic Illness. We ran that as a webinar and we had a really amazing response, really good, really interactive session, but the recording wasn't as good as quality as it could be, so I thought I'll sit down and we'll go through some of those key points again today for anybody who missed the webinar but feels they might benefit from the content. I should also say as well that we do have other events for graduates planned for this year, and the best place to find out about those is on our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Our handle is Astrid Charity, or you can find them all on our website. And if there's any particular session you'd like to see in the future that you would find useful, please do let us know as well and we'll be happy to try and accommodate that. So what you should know about me is that I graduated from the University of York in 2016. My degree is in psychology in education, so you can rest assured that everything I'm sharing now comes from somebody who's been through this experience themselves. And what I really remember from that time is being in my final year of university and everybody around you is scrambling and doing all of these graduate schemes and applying for jobs and doing all of the things. And meanwhile, I was sat there with my chronic illness and it felt like I was just struggling to get through the day and to keep on top of all the existing work that comes with your final year of university. So if you're sitting there and watching this now and you're in that position and you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed with it all and wondering how you're going to manage it all, what I want you to know more than anything is that you are absolutely not alone. And the bad news is that there are so many talented graduates or people who are about to graduate across the UK who have all of these skills and all of this potential and they're looking for meaningful work, and in the past the opportunities just haven't been there. They're opportunities that are going to be manageable and sustainable alongside a chronic illness, which can radically transform your whole way of life. But the good news is that the climate is starting to change, and through our charity Astrid and other organisations, the number of accessible opportunities for people whose needs might differ from what we've been conditioned to believe as the normal graduate means that there are more opportunities than ever before, and some of the opportunities that are coming up now are really, really special. So it's not all bad news, and hopefully we can help you to find the right opportunity that matches your skills and experience as well as your passions. Now, we all know that chronic illness is incredibly unique and so are people's circumstances, so I am not going to sit here and try and anticipate what your exact needs are. But generally speaking, when we think about opportunities that might be more inclusive for people with chronic illnesses, we're generally thinking about things that are remote and work from home opportunities, things that are flexible or with reduced hours, so you can tailor them around your needs and your symptoms. And they're the opportunities that we're hopefully going to be able to help you to find. It's also worth saying as well that this session today is going to focus on employment rather than self-employment. So we're looking at opportunities where you would join an organisation and become part of that team rather than working for yourself. Although we do have other resources on self-employment on Astrid and coming on Astrid already, if that's something that you're interested in as well. So first of all, I'm going to talk with my Astrid hat on about the specific skills and opportunities that we can offer as a charity, and then we can move on to think about finding inclusive work more generally. So if you're new here, Astrid is essentially a small UK charity, and our mission is to help people with long-term health conditions find meaningful work. We work with people who are at all stages of what we call their work-ready journey, whether they are building up their skills and experience or they're ready to move into paid work right away. And we also work with employers and organisations to help them become more inclusive in their employment and recruitment practice, and also to develop more inclusive opportunities so that they can harness more of what we call the invisible talent pool of people with long-term conditions who we all know have all of these skills to offer, and they just need the right environment to enable them to do so. As a charity, there's quite a lot of things we do, but there are a few things I want to mention here specifically with disabled graduates in mind, and the first one is obviously our job matching service. And this is essentially where we encourage people to sign up to our database and register their skills and their interests, and we will then help to match these people with the inclusive opportunities that the employers we work with are currently hiring for. So we take into account people's skills, their background, whether they're qualified for certain roles, and then we put these people forward for jobs with employers who have committed to being more inclusive in their practice and are excited about working with people with chronic illnesses. So once people register, they become eligible for that job matching service, and we also offer other support avenues in the meantime. So we have things like CV development, help with building a LinkedIn profile. We have mentoring schemes and buddying schemes with people from different industries. So we have all kinds of things we can offer. So if you're new to Astrid and you're going to be looking for work in the near future, I wholeheartedly encourage you to sign up now, even just to throw your name in the hat and to get a feel for what we do. And we would really love to have you as part of our community. I feel like I should mention as well, although I'm personally not on the job matching side of the charity, I've been with Astrid for 2 years now, and the quality and the calibre of opportunities that are coming up at the minute are off the scale. Some of the opportunities we have available just looking for the right person are very, very exciting at the minute. Really, just the situation keeps getting better and better. And again, as somebody who's been in that process of looking for meaningful work and wondering whether I can get something that matches my skills and my experience and is what I want to do, that's also going to be manageable alongside a debilitating long-term illness, it's so encouraging to see, and it's free to sign up as well. So all you have to do if you're interested is head to the Astrid website, which will be linked in the description box, and all you do is click on register my skills, you fill out the form, and then the team will be in touch. All of that said, if you would rather see the job finding process as more of an individual thing, we also have something called the Opportunities newsletter that goes out regularly. That's put together by our team member Kat, and she basically scours the whole internet looking for really cool opportunities that have the ability to be customised so that they can be done remotely or more flexibly. And she compiles all of the opportunities she finds into one chunky newsletter. It's a really valuable resource and something that a lot of people find really helpful. And you can also sign up for that via our website. So again, even if you're just kind of scoping out what kind of opportunities might be right for you at the moment, or you want to get a better idea of what's out there, or whether you're ready to start applying to jobs and you're ready to take on paid work, the Opportunities newsletter is a resource that we do that I really recommend as well. If you're looking outside of Astrid, there are also lots of other places where you can find suitable opportunities, and I think the best thing to do here to save your time and energy is to link a blog post that I wrote a while ago. It's called Finding Accessible Work with a Chronic Illness, and that essentially compiles lots of different avenues where you can find jobs that might be a good match for you. So some of these are job searching websites where you can tailor the search to look for specific things such as remote or flexible working. Some of them are schemes that are offered by particular organisations who are passionate about hiring more inclusive talent, and all kinds of things like that. So I will leave that link below, and I'd really recommend having a look at that as well. Something else you might find helpful when you're searching for the jobs that are out there is looking for something called the DisabilityConfident Accreditation. I'm sure many of you will know all about this already, but that's essentially an accreditation that organisations can work towards to show that they are confident in hiring people with disabilities. And the good thing about that is that it isn't just tokenism. There are specific criteria that these organisations have to meet. So if somebody is displaying any level of the DisabilityConfident Accreditation, you know that they are committed and they are probably more likely than most to be willing to accommodate your needs, as they should be. In recent years as well, we've actually noticed some kinds of adaptations of this disability confidence scheme start to come out, and a lot of these are tailored for specific chronic illnesses. So one example that comes to mind is the endometriosis friendly employer scheme that is run by a leading endometriosis charity. And again, it's a similar kind of premise where the employers signed up to that have shown that they have undergone training and have some knowledge specifically around hiring people with that particular condition. So I think that's one of many ways where the chronic illness sort of question comes into it, and you can kind of sidestep the fact that a lot of the disability confident and disability awareness training schemes more generally at the minute don't always capture the uniqueness of chronic illness. So it can be valuable to look out for things as well. It might be worth looking into the charities of your particular chronic illness to see whether they do any schemes like that, or even whether they have any information or resources for employers more generally, because although those resources are often written and targeted towards employers, there can be a lot of useful information that you as a potential employee can glean from those resources as well. And if you are really, really struggling, it's also always worth reaching out to those charities and ask whether they have any specific advice or support available for people who are job seeking alongside managing that particular condition, because disability and employment is one thing, and chronic illness and employment is a whole other thing, in my opinion. So the more information and the more advice you can find, the better equipped you will be. The next thing I wanted to talk about isn't so much about finding those opportunities, but one of the things you can be doing to help yourself in the meantime, while perhaps you're finishing your degree or you're applying for jobs and you're waiting for the outcome, and that is online networking. Now, online networking is something that you might already be doing in some sort of capacity, but you might not realise it. So If you use social media of any kind, whether that's in a personal capacity or a professional capacity, you're likely already building up some kind of online image and reputation of yourself that's visible to other people. And the reason I mention that here is that having an online presence when you have a chronic illness can be a really beautiful way of demonstrating your skills and your experience and who you are as a person, even if, for example, your chronic illness means that you haven't been able to gain as much work experience or traditional qualifications as you might have done otherwise. So online networking can be really valuable. It might be that you want to adapt your existing personal profiles to not so much turn them into something that's worky, because you don't want to stray too far away from who you are, but it might be that you can be mindful of the kind of content you're putting out and how that might look to a potential employer, which really is something that we should all be doing anyway. Or it might be that you want to set up separate platforms that kind of document your journey into employment and talk about your skills and experience so far as you've moved through your education and you're going into the field of work, because the kind of content you can produce in that capacity is something that a lot of people find very interesting and very, very compelling. And when that information is out there in the wider world, that can be a really unique way of putting your name on the table and networking with a wider range of contacts in the industry that you're hoping to move into. It's a nice and accessible way of putting your name out there, because it means that you can do so in a way that is accessible with your needs. So you can create content at home, you can do it flexibly in your own time when you feel well, you can add your own personal spin to it. And that can be a really effective way of making sure that you're networking and meeting the right people, even if your chronic illness means that it isn't always easy to leave the house and be in those traditional types of networking environments. And the one platform that I specifically want to mention, and this is one that as a graduate I never thought I would be using because it always kind of scared me a little bit, but LinkedIn is a really valuable tool to have as you're moving into the world of work. So if you don't already have a LinkedIn profile and you take one thing away from this video today, please go and set up a LinkedIn profile. It doesn't matter how much detail you put on there to start with, although of course the more detail the better, but it's really valuable just to have a profile so that anybody is searching for you, you're making it as easy as possible to find you. And the value of LinkedIn is that it isn't just about your individual profile, because as you connect with more and more people who are in the industry or environment that you're hoping to go into, just having that homepage that's filled with their posts can be a really valuable way of figuring out what people are talking about at the minute and what the conversation is about, because then when you go on to apply for jobs or to be in those environments, you do feel more prepared and you're more in the know about the kind of things that are topical in that community at the minute, and that can be a really big asset in job applications and interviews as well. And the final thing I wanted to say about online networking is that it is quite an individual thing, and the kind of content you create and the way you want to portray yourself is very individual, and there's no real right or wrong when it comes to that. And I really think that being authentic is much more important than being who you think you're supposed to be, which is a trap that I personally fell into back in the day. And with that in mind, I think it's really important that you don't feel as though you have to squash your achievements or be modest or appear a certain way. I think as people with chronic illnesses, we're often subject to so much gaslighting that we feel we have to squash down our achievements and behave a certain sort of way. But with online networking, I just want to say, please don't be afraid to show off of what you've achieved and what you hope to achieve and what your ambitions are, because they're a better reflection of you and your capabilities and the potential that you have, and you do have that potential. So don't be afraid to show that off, and don't be afraid to show people just how much you're worth and how much you can offer them as an employee. The next thing I wanted to mention here is looking after yourself. And that might sound like a bit of a strange one, but again, I can remember from experience that process of trying to find jobs and opportunities to apply for while you're managing all of the demands of your final year of university and just looking after yourself with a chronic illness, it can be incredibly overwhelming. And I remember that it always felt as though there was more that needed to be done. There was always something else you could be doing. You never felt like you got to the bottom of your to-do list. And I think in the midst of all that, it's really important to be looking after yourself as well. And I really don't think that people with chronic illnesses hear that enough. So even as you're going through the job finding process, even before you get a job, I think it's really important to be pacing yourself and keeping in tune with what your body needs, not to be afraid to take breaks, because the more well-rested you are, and if you're avoiding that frazzled and burned out stage, which I'm pretty sure we'll all know too well, that means that you can continue putting your very best self forward during your applications. I used to have a really bad habit of rushing applications under the misguided belief that it was somehow going to save my energy, when in actual fact, it is so much better to take your time and to pace yourself and give your very best to each and every application rather than feeling as though you have to bulldoze through it just so you can get through as many as possible. And that might sound like really obvious advice to some of you, but I think it can be quite easy to forget as well. I also wanted to add a reminder at this stage that you are entitled to reasonable adjustments as somebody with a chronic illness, and those reasonable adjustments don't just come into play once you've secured a job. You are entitled to those adjustments during the recruitment process instead. So if the application form could be made more accessible to you, for example in a different format, in larger text, or if you feel you would perform better at the interview stage if certain adjustments were in place, for example doing that interview remotely or having respite breaks, or if you have to go in person you can request a quieter location on the ground floor. Anything at all that is going to make that process more accessible to you, it is absolutely okay to ask for these things. And I know in the past there was sometimes the worry that by asking for those things you were going to influence the way that the recruiter saw you and it was going to disadvantage you in some way. But that is absolutely not the case, because these things, they aren't an advantage, you aren't asking for a leg up. It just means that you're on more of an even playing field with every other applicant and you can give the best of yourself to that process. So please don't be afraid to ask for reasonable adjustments. And if you want more examples of kinds of reasonable adjustments that you're entitled to and that you might find helpful as somebody with a chronic illness, we do have a research report. It came out last year, we produced it as a charity, and it's called Employment and Long-Term Illness, the Invisible Talent Pool. You can find that on the Astrid website, and I will leave a link to that in the description as well. And the last point I want to make in this little recap of what we covered at the webinar is that in this day and age, it's absolutely okay to aim high. And although it's really important to acknowledge that with chronic illness comes certain barriers when it comes to your career, and a lot of things that would have once been easy do become more difficult and more challenging to work into your life, it doesn't mean that you aren't deserving of an incredible career, because even though you have a chronic illness, that doesn't mean that you don't have incredible skills, incredible experience. There are so many benefits for organisations to hiring people with chronic illnesses. So please don't worry, and please don't feel as though you're less just because you're navigating life with a health condition. It is absolutely okay to be ambitious in your career as well as in any other aspect of your life. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there, to reach for the opportunities that might seem like they're high calibre, because you are absolutely deserving of those opportunities and you are more than qualified to be the very best person for that role. So please don't ever forget your worth and don't be afraid to aim high, because the situation is changing every single day. And with that, I'm going to leave this video here for now. Like I said, this is just a recap of some of the points we covered in our webinar. If you would find it helpful to have another one of those webinars in the future where we can dive into these things more and answer questions like we did in that one, do let us know, because I'm sure that's something we can facilitate. And we also have lots of other webinars and lots of other stuff designed for disabled students coming up. So do keep an eye on our website and on our social media to find that. And if you're interested in Astrid and the kind of support we can offer you with helping you find your ideal job, please do register as a candidate. You can find lots more information on our website and we would be really, really glad to welcome you. So we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you very much for watching and I will see you next time.